Hello, everyone. Welcome to another special edition of the Smart Office podcast. My name is Hippolyte Asah, host of the Smart Office podcast. Today, I'm honored to have Hippolyte Asah. He is founder of Deliver Digital and is equally the host of the Sell Me This podcast. But I'm not going to go too far. I'm going to let him introduce yourself. For people who want to know about you for the first time, meeting you for the first time, how would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is an honor, and I'm very glad to be one of the first guests on your new show.
Yeah.
To introduce myself, my name's Keith Asah. I've spent about the last 20 years across the technology industry, helping to build and scale different organizations from software, from services, and staffing different organizations. Currently, I do a couple things that keep me busy, but my day job is I run a company called Deliver Digital. And what we do is we primarily help non-technical business leaders make better technology decisions. And so we really do that through three different mechanisms. The first one is through our consulting arm, where we take late-stage career folks that have incredible experience, incredible resumes, and a lot to offer customers. We help them build their consulting practice under our umbrella. We have a paid community that we're launching in January.
Right.
That really helps people take their consulting practice from 0 to 60 and kind of really get the wheels off the ground, and taking a lot of those learnings we had scaling Deliver Digital and bringing those to individual consultants. And then, as you mentioned, we have Sell Me This podcast, which is an opportunity for us to be able to interview different leaders across the technology space.
So, wow, that's quite a rich profile right there. Tell me a little bit, what was the moment you realized sales, storytelling, digital transformation would become your path? Like, what we're doing?
I have no clue. I think that my path is a non-traditional one.
Right.
I was really fortunate when I came out of university to start at Xerox. So I don't know if Xerox probably has, they do the photocopiers and all that kind of stuff. And I think they've evolved a little bit past then since I worked there. But I'm very fortunate coming out of university with a business degree. I put my feet to the fire selling photocopiers. And I think that one thing that I really learned selling photocopiers is how do you talk to people that have zero desire to talk to you about the subject matter that you're talking to them about?
Right.
And that initial kind of foray into sales brought me into the technology side of things. And I would say it was the catalyst to opening up a whole bunch of different doors from the technology side of things.
That's cool. Where about are you based, and where are your customer clientele based out of? Do you reach out to the entire world? It seems you're based out of Calgary, but how about your clients? Can you tell us a little bit about your service area?
Yeah, so we're based out of Calgary right now. If you look outside, there's about half a foot of snow on the ground that's fallen today, and I haven't left my house, admittedly. We serve customers all across North America right now. So a majority of our customers are in Canada and the United States.
Okay.
But with obviously the power of technology, we have the power to connect our expertise and our team with people globally. And that's something that's on a roadmap for the next few years.
Wow, that's nice. I mean, it's a global village, right? You could reach anywhere, but it's quite interesting to know you're based out of Calgary for listeners to know. There's no, and they can easily reach you in whichever way they want. Anyway, let's talk about a little bit. Maybe the first, I know, how would you describe what you do at Deliver Digital? Like, maybe I know you touched a little bit about it, but how would you describe exactly what you do there?
For sure. So in a sentence, what I like to say is that we help non-technical business leaders make better technology decisions.
Right.
That can take shape in a whole bunch of different ways.
Right.
And so some of the projects that we'll work on are as simple as, I need a new managed service provider.
Right.
I need to help select a new partner to kind of guide our organization through X, Y, and Z, all the way to strategic, software deployments. We need a new ERP or CRM, or from the ground up, we actually need a complete rehaul of our digital strategy. And so we're really fortunate in the way that we're able to attract talent and kind of bring in some of these late stage consultants where we're able to solve a large variety of problems for customers by connecting them with that right team member. And so we're up, I think we're up to 6 different consultants now on the team. We're growing really quickly. I think we have about 4 or 5 more we're onboarding in Q1 next year. And that gives us the ability to really tackle a lot of really complex challenges for organizations.
Oh, that's great. That's great. What inspired the creation of Deliver Digital, and what gap did you feel wasn't being addressed in the market at that time?
So when I went out and started Deliver Digital, I didn't necessarily have this exact vision in mind. It was literally me and my MacBook in this home office.
Right.
The philosophy that people really sucked at buying stuff. And I know I say that with a little bit of a smile and some humor, but I feel like a lot of these big technology transactions, the speed that things are moving at and the reps that people have, whether it's buying their new AI platform or whether it's investing in a CRM, they might make these decisions even if they're in IT once or twice in their career.
Exactly.
And that's so I'm speaking your language here?
Yeah. They make decisions once or twice. Yeah. You're right.
And so when it comes to these things, they're not low stakes decisions. And, my philosophy was, if we can level the playing field, if we can help the people that are making these technology strategy decisions make better decisions, it's going to elevate the whole industry by allowing people to get more value out of the dollars they're spending. It's going to give more confidence into the purchases they're making. And I don't think that narrative around the Canadian productivity crisis is only in Calgary. Like, I think that's across the whole country. And if we're able to leverage technology and have more confidence in those decisions as a leadership group, I think we unlock a whole bunch of really amazing things. So I went to solve that challenge by myself as Deliver Digital, as Keith as a consultant.
Right.
And really found that as we started to tell that story, that it really connected. And, we launched the company in January of 23.
Wow.
And by the end of the summer, we had 5 different subcontractors that were all supporting projects on that narrative, which was the fact that the people just needed help making better decisions. And that was really the beginning of what Deliver Digital is today.
Well, what were the early challenges you faced building, and how did you overcome them? I know the first year is crazy. Like,
how much time do you have?
We're gonna do our best to get something out of you, because I know the first year is always something, and a lot of people are going to learn from your experience. Because we give up after 3 months, we'll just say, you know what, it's not. Nobody's wanting to buy my service, and then they say, you know what, it's not worth it.
I think that resilience is one of the hardest parts, right? There's
very tough.
There was someone that I talked to in the Calgary ecosystem, and his description of being an entrepreneur was trying to string 2 good days in a row together. And I think that it's the best job that I've ever had, but there's a lot of up and downs. There's a lot of sideways. There's a lot of sleepless nights. The challenges have evolved as we've started to grow. I think that our first set of challenges were no one knows what we do. And I think that the opportunity to continually refine our message and get really good at saying, okay, well, here's the exact challenge we solve. Here's how we do it.
Right.
And really being experimental and soliciting feedback around that narrative and who are we doing this for was one of the first challenges that was really important for us to solve. I think that not falling in love with the idea itself and being really nimble in terms of listening to our customers and listening to our consultants has also dramatically shaped what we do. And so what I mean by that is, like, I think that it's really easy to be way too rigid with what you set out to do. And I think that if you'd asked me 2 years ago, is this what Deliver Digital would be today? I wouldn't have been able to throw a dart at this and be even remotely close. It's been continual iteration, listening to our customers, listening to the market challenges, listening to our consultants, that I think has allowed us to take shape in its current form. And then I think that there's also been this PhD in how do you actually run a business? I think that as we've brought on consultants, employees, team members, there's no playbook. And as much as everyone, says they want to run a business, I think people love some of the independence. They love doing the work, but everything from, okay, well, how do you surround yourself with the right accounting team, the right legal team, some of the actual structural challenges of the business, cash flow, like all of the things that actually make a business run that aren't the reason that most people get into business has been a really interesting, I kind of say PhD in everything.
It's the experience. I mean, some people may put down all the plans, write them down, all the steps, day 1, day 2, but it's actually in doing it that they now realize, okay, how do you iterate, right? And that's been the nature, that's the world in which we live in, that businesses and people that are unable to iterate as we go along and they stick to a specific plan, that never really works because you're going to throw everything out and then start all over again and say, this is not working. I've heard so many, and if you're somebody who doesn't iterate, things just change. Like you may think you have the best product and then a new product just comes in and puts it aside. You're thinking like, okay, I need to readjust. It just happens like that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Sell Me This Podcast. I mean, it's a name. When I saw it, I'm like, Sell Me This Podcast. How did you come about that name? Sell Me This Podcast.
I've been asked about the origin story a few times, and I need to come up with something clever because I honestly can't remember how I came up with it. No, the original vision of the podcast, once again in the spirit of iteration, was when we think about helping people make decisions.
Right.
It was to interview people that sold products that business leaders would commonly buy.
I see.
Well, if we look at our first season, we had people from several security platforms. We had people from ServiceNow. We had people from Lenovo. And I was super grateful to have them all as guests.
Right.
And it was really focused on if I'm able to kind of pull back the curtain and expose some of these leaders to how the world actually works when they're doing these transactions in the back end. What do these sales representatives want? What do they need? And if they were to kind of carte blanche ask for what they wanted from their prospects and customers, what would they say? And it was super eye-opening when you start to put those things together. I think what the podcast has now evolved into and really turned into, which I've fallen completely in love with, is this exploration of the technology ecosystem. And so we've retained the name because I think it's a fun name and it's kind of catchy. But we've really elevated to interviewing some amazing leaders from across the technology ecosystem to give a perspective of what does it look like from a funding perspective? What does it look like from an ecosystem perspective? What does it look like if I'm a startup or if I'm an established organization?
Right.
And we've really had a lot of fun interviewing a bunch of different people that fall outside that initial scope and getting to know them through the podcast.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So why did you start the Sell Me This Podcast in the first place? Like what were the problems or what are the people? And you talk a little bit about the guests. Were these guests principally salespeople or were you bringing people from all walks of life?
Yeah, so the first guests were either kind of business owners that had service-oriented businesses or senior salespeople within established organizations. So I still remember our first guests. Shout out to Alan Lawrence from Hammer Consulting.
Right.
They were generous enough to come on our podcast. And one of the things that we really believed is we wanted to record as much in person as possible. So we partnered with a studio in Calgary called Social Launch Labs, and we're able to have a full sit-down conversation on video and recorded with Alan Lawrence. And if I look back to that first episode, it is incredibly cringy. I actually saw Alan Lawrence at an event last night, and we have a fun reminisce, like where I was literally just like reading questions from a sheet. I had an iPad in front of me, and I was probably more nervous than they were. And so, since then, we've elevated. Layla, who runs Social Launch Labs, has been incredibly helpful in terms of kind of helping to refine our message, helping to kind of prep me as a host. And we've been able to kind of take that and build it into what it is today. And it's one of the funnest things that I have the opportunity to do not every day, but I probably record kind of 1 or 2 episodes a week as we're in our kind of filming season.
Okay.
And it's one of the best things that I have the opportunity to do. We get to meet incredible people.
Right.
It's not too often, and you probably know this, that you get to have an uninterrupted conversation with someone where you're not kind of pseudo checking your phone or email off to the side, or maybe you're an incredible multitasker.
Yeah. No, of course you have to give them the attention.
But what do you think? Like, have you enjoyed the podcast so far?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's been amazing. Podcast has really been an eye-opener for me, meeting incredible people across North America. I've not had opportunity to meet people in Europe. The podcast is virtual for now, where we get to meet CEOs, co-founders, and people in tech. Principally, we talk about every topic, and it's been an eye-opener about opening and sharing how people are meeting the challenges of today's technology. It's a technology-based podcast, so it's been amazing as well. I mean, when I started it, I didn't know how I was going to start. I didn't know how it was going to look like. I said, okay, this is something to start. I wanted to talk about technology, and I wanted to see how the evolving landscape is, the workplace and things. And I said, okay, smart office podcast. That's how I came about the name. Okay, how office is going to be smart, how things are changing, being a fan of Internet of Things and then AI and all that, you know. So it's been great. It's been great. I mean, it's been great. So I've been amazed when I see. I'm really honored to have guests like you on the podcast. When I look at the podcast, I go like, when you guys schedule, I try to go on the website. I see what they're doing. I'm like, wow, this is it. And then I spent time listening. I was just listening to your podcast with Matt Riddle of late. So yeah, we're just following up. I mean, it's inspiring and seeing how people are overcoming challenges in the workplace, and everybody, founder, co-founder, they're going over the same thing. So you may be thinking, well, this is common practice to be successful. There is no easy path. You really have to have that experience and really figure things out as you go.
Yeah. Well, kudos to starting that, right? Like I think that it's, like I said, it's one of the funnest things that I get to do. But there's so many people that talk about doing something, or have this big dream and they never actually take the first step, or they never record the first episode. So yeah, this is, thank you so much for having me on. And it's an honor to be on here as well.
What's the most surprising lesson you've learned from interviewing founders or operators, or like anything that come up to mind, like you've learned or experienced?
I feel really grateful that we get to dive into their stories as people and not just the work that they do.
Yeah.
I think that what becomes really interesting is that as you start to peel back the work out of, obviously the work is maybe how people show up for certain things.
Right.
And there's definitely some connecting fabric that I think makes people succeed as they're growing their businesses or growing their careers or building something incredible. But I think at the end of the day, they're all people, and there's a common thread around curiosity, around kindness, around the kind of reciprocity and the desire to build something that's bigger than them.
Yeah, amazing.
I think is a connecting thread between all of our guests that is just super inspiring.
Yeah, people they want to build, they want to make life better, they want to help. I mean, most of them are just innovators. They are innovators, and they embrace change. They're trying to bring out a new product. I remember talking to a co-founder in the health sector trying to digitalize. I mean, I was amazed at the product they have, and I was like, if I was curious, are you sure this is possible with all the regulations that are surrounding health and everything? It was how they wanted to make it easy for everyday people to have access to medical care, access to doctors, make it easy. People can easily consult and things like that. So it's a lot of change. As I talk to people, there are lots of great ideas and they want to make an impact in the world, and it's been amazing. So just a little bit. So how is the Calgary landscape like in terms of IT services? I know it's a little bit different from Toronto, but how is it like in Calgary and the people who've been talking to around you?
So I'm biased. So I've lived in Calgary now for almost 20 years. And so I would consider this home.
Yes.
And I think that Calgary right now is probably one of the best places in the country to start a business.
I feel that way too.
Oh my goodness, I wasn't expecting that answer.
I was in Calgary last summer? Was in the summer before last. And eventually a friend and I bought a home there.
In Calgary?
Yeah, in Calgary. They say northeast Calgary. And they have family there, and I have family there too. So we're thinking we may visit again. But again, it's and I have lots of friends there. It's a nice place. I mean, I've been here for, let's say, maybe 15 to 18 years, but I haven't become used to it. But when I moved to Calgary, I was surprised, like how the place was, the population, how amazing. I mean, you could basically drive on the street and be comfortable, and you could go to places. I mean, I'm right almost in the heart of Toronto, and it's really crowded. Like anywhere you want to go, it's crowded. But people might look like, okay, but I'm a fan of, you have to look at turning everything into an opportunity, right? Like wherever you are, population, you try to tap into those resources. How can you turn an opportunity? So I just feel like whether in Calgary, there is an opportunity there. There are opportunities there that one can take advantage of. So co-founders like you, founders like you, people want to start up businesses. It's probably going to be the best environment, especially if the regulations are permitted. Like here, we deal with a lot of regulations that don't make it easy as well.
Can I give the quick Calgary sales pitch? This is something I'm super passionate about. But like, I think there's a couple things that are converging in Calgary that are very interesting. The first one being exactly what we talked about, where unlike some of the other major cities in Canada,
right,
the cost of living in Calgary is still relatively low compared to Toronto, compared to Vancouver, compared to Montreal.
right.
And so if you're looking to take that leap, if you're looking to start a business, if you're looking to be able to build something, you can actually still do it here without like losing, like you can afford to take some of those risks way differently because you're not paying $2 million for a 1-bedroom apartment.
Exactly. Oh, you guys don't have the HST, right?
We don't have HST either, which
exactly. Yeah, you have HST. I was surprised like you don't have HST. And then I started looking back at the places that have these high regulations and taxes. It never really works for them at the end, right? And then I started comparing cities in North America and Canada, and I was looking at some of the cities, their regulations and things. The more regulations they put in place, the more they kill the business, the small businesses. The small business just are overwhelmed by these regulations. Whether somebody wants to start a small business, it's like you have to have a commercial insurance policy. You're like, you're just trying to figure out this. No, you're not authorized going to have this. Just an example, a commercial insurance policy may be like $3 million. You have to take out a $3 million policy for something you probably don't need, right? And then you have to do this.
Until you need it.
You don't even need it until you need it. So, but there are other policies that can cover those, and there are things that can help out. But again, it's that environment, right? But anyways, Canada is a great place to start a business. You just need to figure out what are the opportunities in wherever you are to start those things. I believe you guys are really in a good spot starting. I mean, this is your first, probably you're getting to your first year, right?
So we are knocking on the door of our second year. So we are, so we launched in January 23.
2024. Okay, 2023. Okay.
Yeah, or 24. Sorry, 24, and then we'll be 2 years old on January 26.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 years. I mean, to be able to start up a business and get to that point where it's 2 years, 3 years, and then the rest is history. You've figured out that thing. I talk to a lot of co-founders or people who want to start up a business. Again, when I say start up business, I'm talking about people who want to start a business, not people without huge funding. I'm not talking about people who start up, they have $60 million in their world because of funding. Small business that they want to start up. And for them, the first year is pretty much very, very challenging for them. And they trying to figure out what we do. We don't have funding. We believe in what we want to do, but we don't have the big bucks funding from these big places, but we need to start up. And I mean, by talking to people like you, getting inspired, they're going to listen to what you guys are doing at digital, and then they're going to be like, okay, if you guys can do it, why not? Yeah, and then they're getting inspired as well.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, like it's not all rainbows and butterflies.
No, it's not. It's not.
I agree with you, and I would extend it to we're at the end of year 2, and there's still some really hard choices that you're gonna have to make. But I think that the belief in what we're building and the opportunity for us to create something incredible for both ourselves, but also the consultants that have given us their trust. The IT space. And the digital space. And I think that there's so many people that come to us where they love the work.
Yeah.
They all, if they could wave their magic wand every day, and show up, they would just do the work. And it's not about the marketing or the sales or the business development, or even the finance, which are all the things that kind of come along with building a business. And so we've been able to kind of help them focus on the things that they love and that they're really passionate about, and be able to create that infrastructure for them to help grow some playbooks for them to kind of amplify and make easier some of the work around business development, around administration, take off some of the risk on their plates, and be able to really help them create something meaningful as well.
Yeah, I earlier on you said you need to be resilient, and I agree with that. You really need to be resilient and persistent and resilient, believe in what you're doing. But let's talk about what's changing now in our world. I mean, there is no podcast without AI. I've heard a couple of your podcasts, how it's impacting your job. So AI automation, the future of selling. I just want to talk about the future of selling. regarding AI and how you guys are adopting, being a business that launched on the eve of the AI boom, right? How are you
I like
guys?
that. I'm gonna steal that line from you.
Yeah, yeah. How are you guys adjusting and adapting and making the most out of it?
Yeah, I think that it's an incredible opportunity. I was having a beer with someone the other day, and we were talking about a business that he'd launched, I don't know, 10 years ago. And if you think about the opportunity that we have, not just from a kind of digital perspective, which means that I don't have to fly to every single location when I want to sell something, but the opportunity now for us to have AI assistance with how I manage my email.
Right,
I have AI that helps us build scale in our marketing. We have AI that helps us consult and compete with some of the really big organizations without a team of interns.
right,
It's completely allowed us to compete at a different level and scale at a way that would have required way more investment even 5 years ago. And so I'm super grateful that we've launched a business at somewhat of the right time. And I think that if you kind of flip it from the other side, from our customer perspective, there's so much curiosity from a lot of business leaders around how to implement AI into their business. And a lot of the traditional IT folks are really stuck on what to do. And so I think that the opportunity to help guide some of these non-technical business leaders who have the vision of what is possible but just don't understand how to execute on it is a real opportunity to add some value to organizations we're working with.
right. So, a little bit, so what is Deliver Digital building today that leverages AI to make selling easier or make your work easier? Do you guys leverage it in one way or the other?
Yeah. So quite practically to make selling easier, we leverage some AI tools that allow us to do a lot on the recruiting side of things. And so that's probably where we're seeing it the most. From the sales, and I'm curious on your opinion, like we're timid in terms of some of the cold outreach using AI.
Right. I mean, there's some regulations still in that area. Cold email is something becoming popular. I think that is really coming up, but in terms of calls, there's still some limitation.
Yeah.
You know how we have about how do you call that? Crank calls. I mean, putting AI to making calls. That one is still something that is
Yeah,
still
it's
in
it's a little bit questionable, but
yeah.
our belief is that and our marketing plan is quite simple, and it really relies a lot on the human side of it. That's amplified by AI, not replaced by AI.
Right. Okay.
And so if we look at our marketing strategy, not to kind of share the entire stack, but we believe a lot in the power of the brand of our consultants, and so we invest probably an outsized amount to tell the stories of our consultants using video, using social, and amplifying their message and telling their stories as much as possible. And so the amount of video content and the amount of pieces and artifacts that we put out on a daily and monthly basis is probably more than companies 10 times our size. And we believe very strongly in amplifying the individual brands of our consultants along with the brand of Deliver Digital. And then so if we think about where AI fits into our strategy, it's around how do we add scale so that we can focus more on the human connections. And
Okay.
so everything from, meeting recordings,
Right.
and using AI meeting transcription. If we think about AI video editing and the ability to edit a lot of our content using AI and some of the intelligence there. If we think about, the ability to ingest large swaths of data from discovery and from some, customer projects in a responsible, secure way,
Right.
we then are able to be way more impactful. But where we haven't really outside of maybe some of the kind of Gemini and ChatGPT, back and forth that I think most people are doing.
Right.
We haven't really ventured too much into the kind of full RevOps stack of cold outreach using AI or autonomous anything. It's still very much, network driven, one-to-one connection and focused a lot on the relationships of people.
I mean, I think the human role is still going to be very prominent no matter what. Is there a point where you think people are going to get to 90% automated, or 80%, or how far can they go? How far can we go in terms of automating sales or doing things like that? Or do you think people are going to get that human connection still?
So I was on a panel the other day, and one of the questions that came up was around RFPs. So request for proposal, the big bid documents that'll either come out from government or they'll come out, on a smaller, more informal basis. And, what happens a lot with RFPs now is you have a procurement group, and hopefully they don't hate me for saying this, that will gather a bunch of requirements. They'll check with legal and their teams to make sure they check all the right boxes from a risk mitigation standpoint. And then you use some combination of AI and custom writing to develop this bid. It then goes out to a bunch of people that then take that bid, throw it into some sort of AI tool, and use it as the foundation to then create their responses. And I think you're going to probably start to see more kind of like agent to agent based RFP communication where, if I'm a procurement group, I say, okay, well, here's my requirements, and let's do our shortlisting by not putting out this arduous RFP process, but rather just connecting to an agent that's explicitly trained on the history, the projects, the insurance requirements, et cetera, for what we need for our future partner. And then it'll allow for way more time to be focused on kind of that human to human side of it once that shortlist process is done. And so, my belief, and I could be way off my rocker on this, is that the more things become AI-sized, which is not a real word, that the more that human connection stands out, and standing out in the crowd is going to be the important piece, not the volume and velocity.
There's a need to do things faster. Like government works slow, like companies, especially government, they work very slow. They do provide very slow responses. But more and more companies, again, for the need for speed, they want to process data fast. They want to review these kind of things very fast. And so people don't want to wait for 2 weeks for responses. So more and more, what impact has it got on the labor market? What do you think?
So I'm definitely not qualified to answer that, but I think that there's a lot of people that are touting the idea that this is going to have fairly drastic consequences on the labor market.
Yeah.
And, from my armchair quarterback perspective, I would tend to agree.
Right.
I think that there's always a resilience in people that allow for, the ability to find something new to do. And, I like to tell the story of all of the monks and scribes that used to write manuscripts in like large factories before the printing press came about. Right. They all survived and found things to do, but I don't think that ever in human history has there been an acceleration and displacement this rapid.
Right.
And so I think that there's probably a Shangri-La point at the end, but I think that there's going to be some pretty significant disruption prior to that happy point.
Okay. If there's a happy point coming, then that's, of course, we look forward to that. But as every technology, there's always a happy point. You see, throughout the evolution of technology, there's been those bumps along the way, the steam machine, the tractors, the Ford, all those things, they keep changing, and then service industry keeps changing. But this one is just speaking your opinion, like somebody who has been in the field for probably many years, and then now starting a business where you may be observing, you may want to observe what's changing down the line, like you're working with consultants, working with businesses. We're looking at a situation where would there be the market? Is there a market there? Are they reducing the demand? I know some people may say, is the economy, it is a tariff. So we're in the tariff regime right now, and people don't know, is it the AI? Is it the tariffs? Nobody knows we don't know who to they blame.
Yeah.
But people like you with a business, like, how do you see that? How do you work on that?
Well, maybe I'll speak to kind of the domain that I know, which is the consulting side. And I think that there's a lot of really interesting kind of forces that are happening in the consulting ecosystem. So if we look at the work that's being disrupted by AI, it's really on the kind of front end entry level research, deep research, analysis that is mostly done by the kind of, we'll say the intern with a playbook, right? So someone gets their MBA, they go and they join one of the big 4 consulting firms, and they, the plan is they work their way up. And a lot of those firms have this leverage model that allows for, a certain level of attrition and a certain level of ascension to eventually turn a percentage of the people that kind of join their hamster wheel at the very beginning to then be able to eventually become the senior partner. right? And so there's a science, there's a math that they have that says if we have 100 people, we will eventually get one senior partner. And each firm has their own math and their own formula of how they get there. So first of all, when those firms lose the ability to bill out that intern with a playbook at $600 an hour, and they either have the choice of replacing that with AI, or they have the choice of not hiring these people, all of a sudden two really important things happen. One is they start to lose the power of the leverage model.
Exactly.
And so that really affects their pipeline of partner flow that really is a lifeblood of those businesses. But then the second thing, the whole economic model changes, because all of a sudden, as a customer, I don't want to pay $600 an hour for the intern with a playbook. And there's an outsized opportunity when you think of, in combination with that, a bunch of senior people that are hitting the market that have real experience that you can get for, significantly cheaper than the senior partner at one of the big four, that can provide some of that guidance with, the army of interns, which is really an AI platform now. And so I think the consulting world is going to be a super interesting place to be in as it gets very aggressively disrupted.
Exactly.
And so I do think that there will be kind of a re-equitization of how people can consult. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are able to compete at a way different level if they kind of band together.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, it's quite intriguing. Going to 2025, 2026, right? 2025 behind us, 2026, as we're closing the year, what do you see? What do you see for 2026? What's the impact in the job market? The AI evolution continues like full steam ahead. What are the changes you forecast in the business? What's your impression?
Yeah, so for us, we're in double down mode. I think that we have an opportunity in front of us to recruit some amazing folks that are on the market and really expand the way we're delivering services and telling our story. Really across different geographies and really scaling and doubling down on what's working today. I think that more from a macro perspective, there's going to be some interesting things that happen. One is we really need to see that shift in how Canadian businesses specifically start to adopt and invest in technology. There's a narrative that I hate, but it also is a real narrative around the productivity crisis in Canada. And a lot of that is driven by how we are or are choosing not to implement technology. And so we're definitely falling behind a lot of our peers globally in terms of our risk appetite, in terms of how we're investing in technology, and in terms of what that output looks like from a productivity perspective. And so maybe it's more of a wish and a hope rather than a prediction. But I would love to see a little more risk aggressiveness when it comes to Canadian businesses and really having ways to create those partnerships and create those opportunities where they're driving real sustained operating change using technology and not just plugging in Copilot and calling it a day.
Right. So you sound like Canadian business are more conscious. They are more they're more conscious that they don't want to take a lot of risk and because they don't know what's going to happen next.
Well, and I can definitely empathize. Like if you think about some of the the impacts of some of those external forces like the tariffs, like some of the other things that are going on globally. I get it, but we also can't sit back.
You're right.
And I think that it's an incredible opportunity to seize for us, but we have to go and seize it.
Yeah. So what's the hardest part of being a founder that people rarely talk about? Do you maybe have something to share regarding that? Like a lot of things people don't talk about, but they just think being a founder, well, you're in a good spot, but they don't see the bad, the difficult, the challenges.
I think and this is something that can be lonely, right? And especially when you have big decisions, when you have challenging decisions, and especially if you don't have a team of co-founders, like there can be a lot that kind of lives in your head, and it's something that lives rent free all of the time. And so I love it. I think about Deliver Digital way too much, but it's also created an opportunity to build the life that we kind of want for our family. But it can be lonely when you think about kind of building and scaling and some of the decisions that land on your shoulders. And it can be challenging that it doesn't quite turn off. Whether it's a feature or a bug, like to be determined. But I think those are two things that are very real, and it is all consuming, and it can be a little bit lonesome.
Okay. What advice do you have for founders struggling to get consistent sales or to get by to move forward? Any last word for them?
I think from a consistent sales standpoint, I think that there's two things that are important, and we're probably in that journey a little bit as well ourselves, which is, you need to move past the network into the systems. And so I think that every founder's first set of sales is going to come from people that they know or are adjacent to.
Right.
These are people that already probably have a little bit of implied trust.
Right.
They probably have a little bit of extra belief. But finding ways to add systems that scale faster than your network, I think, is a really important mechanism for scale. And then, I think the other piece is if people really aren't biting, it's like, I think they really have to evaluate their product and their product fit. Are they being too broad? Are they being too narrow? What does their narrative look like? Who's their ICP? How are they communicating to those people? Where are they meeting them? I think that there's a friend that I have out west where, he has this really kind of humorous narrative around band busy. I think that there's a lot of people that can be very busy and working their tails off, but maybe they're applying their efforts in areas that aren't going to bear fruit. And I think really looking at how are you spending those time, and how are you spending time to drive really revenue with the right customers, prospect, ICP, etc.
Right. That's nice. Let's say if you had to start deliver digital from zero today, what would you do differently? Would you change anything?
So yes and no. And so I made this joke to someone the other day, and I don't know if it's true or not. And it might have been a moment where it's like, I don't know if I'd ever actually start a new company again from scratch. I think I'd buy something, and then I would just start to operate. It's very hard to do a cold start.
Right.
If I was to, there's 100 lessons that I've learned, but I also think that I would needed to learn them. And that's everything from the team that we brought on, where we've made different investments. It, goes back to how we told our story.
Right.
The lessons we've learned from, moving through the kind of me as a solopreneur to hiring subcontractors to, really delivering this new brokerage model that allows us to attract some incredible people. I think all of those things don't happen if I don't fall on my face while we're experimenting. And so as much as I wish we could probably press fast forward on the first really 18 months of the business, I'm really grateful for a lot of the trials and tribulations that we learned in each of those stages.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I mean, good to hear. Where can our listeners find you and learn more about your work, for example? And if you have any projects or episodes, or maybe somebody wants to come on, sell me this podcast.
Yes. So I'm a fairly easy person to find online, which is a good and a bad thing. LinkedIn is probably where I spend a lot of time. So you can find me, Keith Dazer, on LinkedIn. We have the Deliver Digital website, which is www.deliverdigital.ca. And then we also have a website for Sell Me This Podcast, which is sellmethispodcast.ca. And, we're always looking for guests. So we do record in person in Calgary. So if you're not in Calgary, we'd hopefully you can take a flight out here. I'm always interested and eager to meet new and interesting people.
What? So how much percentage do you do in person? Is it 100%?
So this season we made the decree that we are doing 100% in person.
Okay, that's nice.
We're privileged to be able to do it, but we have a great studio that we work out of, and it just leads to a really interesting conversation. And I think that it's a cool experience for some of the guests that come on as well.
Perfect. Wow. Next trip to Calgary, I'm probably going to book, hopefully, come on the Kid Days
Come on down.
show. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I look forward to that. Quite interesting. I've listened to a number. I listened to two of them while preparing for the show. They were quite interesting, and I was quite intimidated. I'm like, I didn't know Kid Days. I was a podcaster. Now she's going to come to my show. How am I going to catch up? Okay, I'm going to take the opportunity to learn a lot from him, which has been amazing. Kid, it's been an amazing time. Quite interesting to be with you. You've shared a lot of thoughtfulness and experience. Your past quite going to be. A lot of people are going to be listening to the show, and hopefully those who have the opportunity to listen to the show, they would really be amazing with what you've shared with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. You've been an incredible host, and I've had a blast.
Thank you very much. We'll see you again. Hopefully invite you on another episode next season for sure. Thank you.
I love it.